It always begins before the first rays of light can even ignite the horizon. At around 4:30 in the morning, the world outside remains a dense and silent void. You cannot see the birds, you cannot see the branches they are perched on, or even the outline of the fence right in your own backyard. The sky wears a monochromatic hue, dark enough that human reason would dictate there is no reason for any creature to make a sound at this hour. But then, a sound breaks through. A single melody, repeated twice, followed by a brief silence, then continuing again. Within just 20 short minutes, the entire space around you suddenly becomes alive with sound. By the time you finish brewing your morning coffee and stand by the window, the dawn chorus has reached its peak volume. It is a multi-layered wall of sound, interwoven and overflowing, giving the human ear the sensation of a celebration, a pure happiness when the natural world wakes up. We hear it just like we hear a true piece of music, a sound created for the joy of singing. But the truth is not like that. What is happening in your yard in the hours before the sun rises, from February to July every year, is actually one of the most fiercely competitive and high-stakes events in the natural world. It is not a song of celebration, but a battle without guns, and the birds in your garden are fighting with all their might right now. The dawn chorus does not take place in the early morning by coincidence. It begins at this hour because dawn is the time that offers the most optimal advantage in terms of acoustic physics throughout the 24-hour cycle of a day. Birds have recognized and fully exploited this truth over millions of years of evolution. To understand that, we need to look at how sound travels through space. Sound moves through the air in the form of wavelengths, and the further its journey, the more easily the sound wave is scattered, reflected back by physical surfaces, or swallowed by the surrounding ambient noise. In the middle of the day, the outdoor space becomes an incredibly chaotic environment for acoustic signals. The heat of the sun warms the ground, creating continuous rising thermal currents, which combine with wind, buzzing insects, and the traffic noise of modern life. All these factors join forces to severely degrade the quality of a bird's song. A message that could otherwise travel 100 meters in perfect conditions is shrunk to only about 60 meters by noon, and by the time it reaches the listener's ear, it has become a faint, distorted band of sound. However, in the hour before the sun appears, all these sources of interference almost completely disappear. At this time, the air layer close to the ground becomes cooler and denser, creating a weather phenomenon that scientists call a temperature inversion. The sound waves emitted from a singing bird, as they move upward, hit the warmer air layer above. Instead of continuing to scatter and disappear into the vast sky, they are refracted and bent back toward the ground. In essence, the dawn atmosphere acts like a giant natural megaphone, reflecting and keeping the sound signal traveling further along the surface of the earth. In-depth studies published in the journal Behavioral Ecology have measured the reach of bird songs between dawn and midday. The results amazed many people. The same melody produced by a bird can travel up to 20 times further in the quiet conditions of the early morning compared to midday. The pre-dawn period is also the calmest time of the day because the thermal activities caused by sunlight have not yet started. Wind usually creates low-frequency background noise, something that can easily mask the specific frequency range that small birds use to communicate. A wren usually sings in the frequency range of 2,000 to 7,500 Hz, and even a gentle breeze is enough to create broadband noise that reduces the sharpness of this message when traveling far. Therefore, the wren on the old oak tree at 4:48 in the morning does not sing early for romantic reasons. He wakes up and sings because he understands that the physical structure of the morning is on his side, when the surrounding air is the cleanest, most perfect amplifier for his message to be transmitted intact and clear. The content within the dawn song of a bird is completely free of artistic expression in the way humans usually think about music. In reality, it is a legal declaration, a signal containing an incredibly dense amount of information sent to two target groups at the same time, including rival males and potential females. For other males of the same species, this message carries an absolute assertion of territorial ownership, stating that this space has an owner. I am here. I was here yesterday, and I will still be here tomorrow. The consistency in a male's morning performance, from always returning to the exact same familiar branches and starting at a fixed hour, to maintaining a list of complex melodies with a resilient duration is not merely a habit. It is the way he proves to the whole garden his health, his abundant energy reserves, and his superior survival capacity. In the world of birds, a male suddenly falling silent means that his territory, by that very fact, becomes an empty plot of land ready for someone else to come and claim. The level of mutual surveillance among individual birds in the same area takes place so closely and accurately that the human eye can hardly perceive it. Research on the song sparrow published in the journal Animal Behavior noted that neighboring males always closely monitor each other's morning singing schedules. If a male, due to illness or injury, stops singing for just 2 consecutive mornings, the rivals on the adjacent borders will immediately notice this absence. And by the 3rd morning, they will begin to encroach, advancing deep into the territory of the weakening bird to steal land. The song is the presence, and the disappearance of the song is a signal of surrender. When 2 males of equal strength and capacity confront each other, a special phenomenon will occur called a song duel. At this time, when one male sings a piece of music, the neighboring male will immediately respond with that exact same piece of music, or with a more complex variation, sung at a louder volume from a higher, more prominent position on the branch. This tense dialogue can last continuously for 20 to 30 minutes in the silence of the early morning. To a casual observer standing below, this sounds like 2 friends happily chatting and harmonizing together. But the reality is completely opposite. It is a high-level battle of wits, an uncompromising confrontation using voice. Each bird is trying to establish dominance and mentally overwhelm the opponent without having to plunge into a bloody physical fight. Direct brawls between birds rarely happen, not because they are tolerant or gentle with each other, but because the dawn chorus has been established as a smart mechanism to settle land disputes using vocal energy, helping them preserve precious resources for survival. While the males are pouring all their hearts into the acoustic battle, the females choose for themselves a completely silent but extremely powerful role. In most singing bird species, the female does not hold territory and does not need to speak up to advertise herself in the morning, but she is listening to the dawn chorus with intense concentration. What she is analyzing and evaluating is so specific that it took researchers many years to decode. For a female bird, choosing a mate is one of the decisions of life and death, greatly affecting the entire breeding season. The male she chooses not only decides the gene pool that the chicks will carry, but also dictates the quality of the territory where they will build their nest, the male's ability to protect the family, and whether he will share the responsibility of foraging to feed the chicks. The dawn chorus is a large-scale audition, and the grading criteria of the female bird are much stricter than we think. Research from the Max Planck Institute for Ornithology has shown that females tend to prefer mating with males who sing earlier in the dark, maintain a longer singing duration, and possess a rich song repertoire with many different melodies. These are absolutely not random aesthetic preferences, but each factor is an accurate measure of the male's actual biological condition. A bird that begins singing before daylight, when the light level is too low to search for food, is proving to the world that its overnight fat reserves are extremely abundant. It is rich enough in energy to spend on singing instead of having to scavenge for food to survive. Conversely, a male who must wait until the first rays of light appear to make a sound is one who is exhausted of energy after a cold night and starts the new day with a visible shortage of breath. Besides, the complexity of the song is a certificate of brain development capacity. A song sparrow can possess from 10 to 15 different singing styles, and remembering and storing many melodies proves a perfectly developed nervous system in an environment free from stress or malnutrition since childhood. Interestingly, this chorus does not begin in a chaotic way, but always follows a very strict waking order regulated by the anatomical structure of the eye. The bird that always sings first in most North American gardens is the American robin. This is not a personality trait or innate diligence, but entirely due to natural structure. The robin possesses eyes significantly larger than its body size, meaning they have larger retinas and more photoreceptor cells. This makes their eyes extremely sensitive to dim light, allowing their bodies to reach the hormone stimulation threshold to start singing 15 to 20 minutes before smaller-eyed species. After the robin, in a predetermined order, come the thrushes, the song sparrow, the house finch, and finally the house sparrow, which usually only makes a sound a few minutes before or after the sun officially appears. This consistency in time turns the waking order of birds into an excellent biological tool to measure light pollution. In residential areas where streetlights and garden lights are too bright, robins will be deceived and sing up to 30 minutes earlier than intended, signaling that the natural world around us is gradually losing its primitive darkness. After more than an hour of tense confrontation in the dark, the sun finally rises, pouring warm ribbons of light down on all things. The symphony of sound begins to subside, giving way to the practical survival activities of a new day. This is when we realize the deepest part of the dawn chorus that scientists call the concept of an honest signal. A signal only truly has value when the creature has to pay a very high price to produce it. The fact that a tiny bird pours all its energy into singing loudly at the coldest moment, after a long 10-hour night without a single grain in its stomach, is the most solid evidence that it is running on a surplus source of energy. That song is not a fake theatrical performance, but an honest biological audit report, accurately predicting that the individuals singing loudest this morning are the ones who will continue to survive through the next winter. Understanding this, the wall of sound outside the window suddenly transforms from a familiar ambient noise into a deeply moving epic of resilience. Those tiny creatures do not sing because life is easy or filled with carefree joy. They sing because they have overcome the challenge of the darkness and the cold. That is a gentle but profound lesson for humans, reminding us of the power of presence, of the effort to stand firm and find our own voice even when the inner reserves seem to have run dry. Next time, when you happen to wake up at 4:30 in the morning and hear the first single melody rising from the bush in the corner of the garden, please listen to it with a new respect. That is not the background music of the early morning, but a sacred battle for survival that has just been reset. Tomorrow morning, when standing by your cup of coffee, try looking out the window and share this story by leaving a comment below to see which birds sang first in your yard and what time the chorus where you live begins. Let us record those resilient sounds of nature together.